Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is wonderful to have you with us today. I want to start this one a little differently. I want to ask you, and you listening too, just engage your senses for a second. I want you to think about the sonic landscape of the last, let's say, 12 to 18 months. Have you noticed the silence?
It has been conspicuous, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, think back a year, maybe two. The news cycle was it was dominated by noise.
Mm-hmm.
And not just general noise, but, very specific, very loud, organized groups. They were shouting through megaphones, marching in the streets
Constantly in our feed.
constantly. And then almost overnight, it felt like someone just hit the mute button.
Yeah, the streets went quiet.
And we aren't just talking about, like, a general lull in protests. We are talking about a very specific demographic here.
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
groups that love a coordinated outfit, the khaki pants, the polo shirts.
The tactical vests, you know the ones.
You know the ones?
Yeah.
And the drop-off in their public visibility wasn't a gradual fade-out. It was a cliff.
Exactly. And that is the central mystery we are exploring today. I mean, did they just give up? Did they all decide to take up gardening?
And knitting, yeah.
So we are digging into a fascinating and frankly a slightly terrifying piece of investigative reporting by Jack Diggs. The article is titled The Great American Rebrand, From Proud Boys to Proud Badges.
It is a compelling read, and Diggs, he describes his own work as a documentary with jokes.
Right.
So he uses a lot of satire, a lot of dark humor to deliver the facts, but we really shouldn't let that distract us. The underlying patterns he's revealing are structural. They're incredibly serious. He's essentially tracking a migration.
A migration. I think that is the perfect framing. Because usually when we talk about these groups, the extremist fringe, the militia types, we assume if they go quiet, well, maybe they disbanded.
Sure.
But Diggs argues that the silence on the streets is actually evidence of something else entirely. He argues they didn't disappear.
No, they just moved indoors.
Specifically into federal enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Diggs posits that the silence of the extremist fringe is directly correlated to a massive surge in activity within federal agencies, most notably icy immigration and customs enforcement.
Okay, so let's unpack this timeline, because Diggs calls it the most synchronized disappearing act since the Bermuda Triangle had a PR team. What? What exactly happened to trigger this?
Well, you had to look at the incentives. You had a period of intense legal pressure on these groups. Arrests, subpoenas.
The threat of serious jail time.
Exactly. The walls were closing in on the whole private militia model. And then you had that wave of high-profile pardons. We all remember that.
Right, the clean slate moment.
Exactly. And immediately following that, the guys in the khakis, they vanished.
Gone.
Vaporized. Diggs uses the phrase vaporized like a subpoena in a shredder, which is just a fantastic image.
It really is.
But while sociologists were writing papers about, where did the movement go,
Sure.
and reporters were looking for them in the usual dark corners of the internet,
Yeah.
Diggs found that they were actually standing in line.
At the job center.
Essentially, yes, but a very specific job center. While the streets were empty, ICE was dealing with a flood of paperwork.
Wow.
Diggs compares the surge in applicants to a CrossFit gym in January.
That is such a vivid analogy. Everyone rushing in at once, trying to get stronger, trying to get fit, or in this case, a badge.
It suggests a transfer of energy, you know, the desire to enforce, to patrol, to be part of a uniformed unit. That psychological need didn't just go away because the groups went underground.
It just sought a new, safer outlet.
A legitimized outlet.
And that's the key difference, right? Legitimacy. But here is where I get stuck. If I am a federal agency and I suddenly get flooded with applicants right after a bunch of extremist groups go underground, wouldn't I be suspicious?
You would think so.
I mean, wouldn't you want to vet these people? Make sure you aren't handing a badge and a gun to someone who was just marching against the government a few months ago.
Ideally, yes. In a functioning system, you want to ensure that people enforcing the law aren't bringing some, radical anti-institutional ideology to the job.
But that's not what Diggs found.
No. He looked into the hiring pipeline, and what he found suggests that suspicion was not high on the priority list.
This is the part of the article that made my jaw drop. He calls it the 6-minute standard.
It is baffling.
Mm-hmm.
To prove his point, Diggs details the experience of an actual journalist who applied to IC as a test case.
Okay.
Now, context is key here. This isn't just a random person. This is a journalist with a very public paper trail.
A paper trail of being a critic, right?
Explicitly so. She had written articles criticizing the administration. She had written about the dangers of unaccountable federal enforcement. I mean, if you were running a background check, Even a basic Google search. Her name should have been flashing red.
She was the opposite of an ideal candidate.
The antithesis, really. And yet she was hired.
After an interview that lasted, how long?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. I have had longer conversations trying to cancel a cable subscription.
Oh, easily.
I've definitely had longer conversations ordering a sandwich. Do I want pickles? What kind of bread? That takes 5 minutes right there.
Diggs writes, that's not onboarding. That's a sneeze with paperwork.
It's almost hard to believe. What does that tell us about the agency? Is it incompetence? Is it just desperation?
It points to a desperate need for bodies. It suggests the agency has moved into a phase where quantity completely supersedes quality or ideological compatibility.
It's like they're just saying, perfect, you're breathing, you have a pulse, can you start Monday?
That's the vibe. It implies they didn't even Google her.
Or worse, they did, and they just didn't care.
That's the more disturbing possibility.
Yeah.
And consider the implication for the people we are talking about, this migration group. If a known critic with a paper trail gets through in 6 minutes.
Imagine how quickly someone who actually aligns with that militant aesthetic gets through.
Right. If you walk in there with the right haircut, the right tactical pants, the right attitude, the interview might be over in 4 minutes.
The door was just wide open.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have the migration, we have the open door. Now let's talk about what happens when these guys actually get inside, because this is where the rebrand part of the title really manifests visually.
This is where the sociology gets fascinating, because usually when you join a federal agency or any uniformed service, the whole point is uniformity. You give up your individual identity to become part of the collective. You wear the badge, the standard issue shirt.
It's about being an agent of the state. You are interchangeable. You represent the office, not yourself.
But that's not what Diggs found happening. He describes this shift in the visual culture in these field offices. New agents coming in and, refusing to wear the standard gear?
Pretty much. They don't want the windbreaker that says ICE in big yellow letters.
No, that's too official.
Too bureaucratic. They want custom tactical patches.
Yep.
Diggs describes the vibe as a militia group discovers a federal budget.
That's amazing.
They are bringing the aesthetic of the private paramilitary world, the world they supposedly left behind, right into the federal workplace.
And the patches themselves. Oh, man. Diggs found these patches these guys are wearing. At a glance, they look official, right? 3 letters, cool military fonts, tactical colors.
Olive, drab, coyote tan, all of that.
Yeah.
But when you decode what they stand for, well, Diggs does some translation for us.
He does. And this is where the satire really bites, because it's rooted in a very real observation of how these units are naming themselves. It's a way of signaling to each other who they really are.
It's an inside joke.
Okay, let's run through a few of these because they are unbelievable. First, we have the patch that says GRT.
GRT, yep.
Now, officially, if a supervisor asks, that stands for Gang Removal Team. Sounds standard enough.
Totally.
But the nickname in the locker room,
Guys, rebranded tactically.
it's so on the nose. It's literally a nod to the fact that the personnel haven't changed, just the label.
It's them laughing at the fact that they got away with it.
Okay, then there is FOT, official name. Fugitive Operations Team, decoded meaning.
Former Oath Keepers transitioning.
That one is incredibly specific. It points directly to the source of this new labor pool.
It's not even trying to hide the lineage. It's practically a citation. It tells you exactly where they came from.
Okay, next up, SRT, Special Response Team, standard police terminology. But the translation is?
Still really themselves.
Still really themselves. That might be the most poignant one for me. It emphasizes that despite the new context, the federal paycheck.
The core identity is untouched. They haven't been reformed by the agency. They're just occupying it.
And finally, my personal favorite, CAP, Criminal Alien Program, but in the field.
Cosplay and patches.
Cosplay and patches. It's funny, but it's also deeply disturbing when you stop laughing.
It is, because it frames state violence as a form of role play.
Exactly. When you have agents prioritizing their cool custom patches over their official ID, you have a huge problem with accountability.
It creates this image that Diggs paints so well. Masks on, patches everywhere, badges nowhere.
It's a shift from being an identified public servant, someone I can report if they mistreat me, to being this anonymous tactical force.
It is a move toward tactical anonymity. And we have to remember, that is a hallmark of the groups we saw marching in the streets before the silence. They loved the gator masks, the ambiguity, the intimidation factor.
And now they've just brought that ambiguity under the umbrella of federal authority? So we have the visuals, we have the hiring practices. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Is there hard proof Or is this just vibes? Is there a paper trail?
This is where Diggs' investigation gets into the weeds of bureaucracy. He didn't just look at patches, he looked at documents. He and other journalists started getting their hands on federal training rosters and contractor lists.
And the names on those lists?
Weren't random, no. They were familiar. Specifically, Diggs alludes to finding names that cross-reference with leadership roles in those disappeared groups. He mentions one specific case, a certain polo shirt enthusiast with a well-known leadership resume.
I think we can all read between the lines there. But what did the officials say when they were confronted with this?
The official denial was fascinatingly worded. It was a masterclass in legal gymnastics.
Oh, I bet.
They said, quote, "This does not confirm he is an IC agent."
This does not confirm. That is slippery.
It is. And as Diggs points out, while it technically might be true, maybe he's a contractor, maybe he's in some verified status, but not a sworn officer yet.
The name is on the list. The person is in the building.
Right. The documents themselves contradict the spirit of the denial. He's in the ecosystem.
And analysts have actually started using a new term for this, right? The specific status.
They have verified ICE. It's this gray area. Not officially ICE, just verified ICE.
Which allows the agency to have the manpower to utilize the aggression.
Without claiming the full liability of employing them, it's a loophole.
It's like a freelancer loophole for federal enforcement.
That is a very good way to put it.
And this brings us back to the core point of the article, the costume change. Khakis to government cargo pants. But Diggs makes a really harsh observation about the character of these men.
No, he doesn't let them off the hook. And I think this is where the article sheds its humor for a moment and gets very raw. He notes that despite all the rebranding, the fundamental character remains unchanged.
Yeah, he uses a very specific, very derogatory phrase to describe them. He calls it the unavoidable truth.
He does. He says that at their core, they are still, well, the source uses the term punk-ass bitches.
It's a visceral description. It really catches you off guard. But structurally, what he is saying is that the weakness, the bullying mentality, the need for validation through force, that hasn't changed.
Right. It's not about being tough. It's about needing a shield.
Yeah.
And you can put a badge on a bully, but you haven't fixed the flaw. You've just given the bully a better weapon and legal immunity.
And the source is arguing that the vulnerability that drew them to extremism in the first place is the exact same thing drawing them to these enforcement roles.
Precisely. The transformation is cosmetic. The problem is structural.
Which really makes you think about the motivation. Why did this happen now? We touched on the timeline, but Diggs suggests there's almost a transaction happening here. A quid pro quo.
He calls it saying the quiet part loud. Now, to be clear, he isn't alleging there's a signed contract in a vault somewhere.
Right, it's not a conspiracy theory in that sense. It's pattern recognition.
Exactly. He just lays out the incentives.
Yeah.
You have a group of people facing serious legal trouble, then you have the pardons, then you have the hiring surge.
The pattern is hard to ignore.
The hypothetical deal he outlines is chilling in its simplicity. You get your freedom. We get your loyalty.
And maybe a few of you get a vest that says GRT.
Right. It's an exchange. The state gets enforcers who are willing to do the rough work, who are ideologically aligned with a certain type of aggression.
And who probably aren't too concerned with the fine print of civil liberties.
And the enforcers, they get protection, they get legitimacy, they get to keep playing soldier, but now they have federal immunity.
It's the ultimate trade-up for them. They go from being potential defendants to being the ones holding the handcuffs.
It represents a curious alignment of timing, incentives, and tactical sunglasses, as Diggs puts it. When you look at it that way, it stops looking like a coincidence.
And then it starts looking like policy.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this all mean for us? For the person walking down the street, we started this deep dive asking where the loud voices went. And the answer seems to be, they didn't go away.
They just went indoors. They traded the public square for the squad car. That is a summary of the Great American Rebrand.
The Proud Boys and similar groups, in Diggs's view, didn't dissolve. They evolved.
They realized that shouting from the outside is less effective and more dangerous for them personally than operating from the inside.
They traded polos for plate carriers. They traded telegram for government radios. And the scariest part is the oversight, or the lack of it.
That's the lingering question. Did ICE really not notice? I mean, when you have an interview process that takes 6 minutes, when you have agents refusing standard uniforms.
When you have known extremists appearing on training rosters, is it possible that the agency is just blind?
Or is it that they're choosing not to see?
That is the far more uncomfortable possibility.
If you need a force to execute certain policies, perhaps controversial or harsh policies, maybe you aren't looking too closely at the resume of the person willing to do it.
You just check the pulse, hand them the patch, and look the other way.
Yeah.
It really challenges the way we think about the line between the fringe and the state. We like to think there is a wall there. The bad guys are on one side, the law is on the other.
But Diggs is suggesting the wall has a door, and someone left it propped open.
Which raises a really provocative thought to leave our listeners with.
Mhm.
If the rebrand is this seamless, if you can go from being a designated extremist to a federal agent in the span of a few months and a 6-minute conversation, what does that actually say about the difference between private extremism and state-sanctioned enforcement?
Is the distinction structural?
Mm.
Or is it just a matter of who signs the paycheck?
That is the question we all need to sit with.
It really is.
A huge thank you to Jack Diggs for this reporting. It's dark, it's funny, and it's incredibly revealing. And thank you to you, the listener, for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure to connect the dots.
We will see you next time. Stay curious.